Hello everyone, it's Dr. Stuart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the third week of July 2020. And in case you're wondering why I seem out of breath, it's because Paradise made me bring a new distiller that was delivered across from the front door, down the basement steps, and across the basement to the utility room.
Through the Reed Sea.
So, of course, it was about as big as me. And so, thank you for that exercise that you made me do. I
Offer to help
appreciate
you.
it. You know, and such lovely words. If you're breathing and you're not dead, just do the work.
Oh, remember
That was nice. I appreciate
Remember the
that.
active mind control programming knows I can't breathe.
Yeah. Well, guess what? I can't.
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe I should.
Oh, I should lay down here and I'll put my
Have
neck
a
on
picture
my
of
head,
you. Yeah.
my leg on your neck.
Well, that would just be normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might as well let them see that.
Yeah. Usually, and also the crowbars that you use all the time. I understand. It's lovely living with Paradise.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, guess what? The CDC said that was quite of a shock.
Everything they say is quite of a shock because they're not even a real organization.
I know. The communist democratic crap. That's what it means.
Democratic.
Yeah, that's what
Crap.
the CDC means. And so they admitted this past week that COVID-19 positive results from the test that you would take, it just means that you've previously contracted the common cold. That's why they're all positive. Because
Well, not
most
only
people
that.
have had a cold in their life.
Right, but we don't use Lysol. But many years ago, I did use Lysol, and on that it says, kills coronavirus. A Lysol. So
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, President Trump wanted everybody to inject Lysol in there.
Well, that's not the
But
way he
I know,
phrased
I
it.
know, but that's what the
the
Democrats said.
Yes.
Anyway, it says a positive result means that you have antibodies from an infection with the virus from the same family of viruses called coronaviruses, such as the one that causes the common cold. So if you've had a cold at any time in your life and you've developed antibodies, if you take the COVID-19 coronavirus test, you'll be positive, even though you're not. So
Well, unless they get the ones that are
that's
already.
the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, look, what about the? You remember in Africa what did
Yes,
you
they
test?
tested a pawpaw fruit. They tested
And
a
a
goat.
goat.
And a few weeks ago, they were nurses, I think, in the United
Yes.
States. They sent an empty test in that came in positive.
Yes. But they put names and dates, but
Yeah,
they,
but
they
there was
never
nothing.
used,
But there was
they didn't
nothing
use-
in the test.
Yes,
It was
it's all
empty. So
crazy.
that should tell you what's going on. And so they said positive test merely means you once had a common cold and nothing more. And so that is what they're calling, according to this article, a sinister plan that's currently in effect. For unconstitutional closures, shutdowns, lockdowns, forced testing, contract tracing, and complete dismantlement of society as we know it. And as Q says, just recently, if you follow the Q post, he said, or they said, one day after the election, everything will stop. They said, election plus one. That's when everything will stop. So,
Guess
but-
what? That's even what I said.
Yeah.
And I'm not even part of Q.
Maybe you are Q.
No,
Maybe
part
you're
of
Q
Q.
Paradise or Paradise Q. PQ. Mind your PQs. Anyway, it makes me wonder who's really behind this. And some people have suggested recently, and I have pondered it, what if the Republicans and the Democrats are really two sides of the same thing, just playing each other good cop, bad cop, to see who's going to win the society control? I thought about that, and it's very disturbing. Anyway, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos said that she intends to have students back in the classrooms this fall. She says, parents are expecting that this fall their kids are going to have full-time experience with their learning, and we need to follow through on that promise. And she said, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of how. And I do agree with that, because there's no reason for anything to be closed, especially the schools. She said the students have been harmed by not being in school during the spring for this coronavirus pandemic, and some who have been staying home could be suffering from mental, emotional, and social issues. Well, I kind of think they do anyway, but it just makes it worse. She continued, they've fallen behind this spring. We need to ensure they're back in a classroom situation wherever possible and whenever possible and fully functioning fully learning. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, there they are again, did not say schools had to be closed and released guidelines last month for how they could reopen safely. DeVos acknowledged that exceptions could be made in areas that are seeing a spike in cases, means people who had a lot of colds in the past and testing positive, where they're not hotspots in the future, in the fall, of course, that has to be dealt with differently. Now, California, Texas, and other states and cities like Denver already said that they will only be virtual classes. And so the question is, how do they know what the situation will be in September? Nobody knows what next week will be like, so how can they already stop school 2 months from now when they don't know what the conditions will be?
I told you about the one in Indiana where there's kids are going to the classroom Monday and Wednesday and e-learning Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, because the
and then
coronavirus doesn't go to school on the other days.
Well, the other
That's
days,
right.
then the other half go Tuesday, Thursday, and they learn virtually Monday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
Friday.
So explain to me how that stops a pandemic.
But this is just one
If there's
way.
going to be kids every day in the school and they're just skipping days,
It's gonna be
what's the
really
difference?
rough
It's
emotionally for these children.
stupid human people, stupid humans. Anyway, researchers at Israel's Hebrew University of Jerusalem and New York's Mount Sinai Medical Center believe they could potentially now pay attention to this, because remember the first story I told you about? It said they could potentially downgrade COVID-19 severity into nothing worse than a common cold.
Jeez, what a surprise.
The FDA-approved drug Phenovibrate, it sounds kind of sexy to me, vibrate,
Go for it.
also called Tricor, could reduce SARS-CoV-2's ability to reproduce or even make it disappear. Viruses are parasites. Well, that's not exactly correct. They're similar. Viruses are parasites, according to this article. They cannot replicate themselves. They cannot make new viruses. They have to get inside a human cell and then hijack it. They just inject their DNA into human cell and then the human cell. And that's how cancer forms, also from viruses. Cancer comes from a virus.
Read our books.
Coronavirus prevents the routine burning of carbohydrates. That explains why some people are getting fat, which results in large amounts of fat accumulating inside the lungs. And that's the condition this virus/parasite needs to reproduce. So this Israeli-American team is advancing to animal studies in New York. Well, that would be the people there. And hoping to fast-track clinical studies in both Israel and the United States within the next couple of weeks, since the drug has been proven safe. So here's the thing. The drug has been proven safe, so then why do they have to test it and take so long to get it into the public if it's safe? I don't understand that. Now, this next story that I want to talk about, you have brought up previously about the virus of this pandemic being a ritual. So I want to expand on that, because we are expansions. So I'm going to expand on that story
Look, a good
of
plan.
occult ritual transformation and coronavirus, which means mask wearing, hand washing, social separation, and lockdowns are part of an old, very ancient occult ritual that's used to initiate people into a new global order. And so, again, 4 categories here: ritual mask wearing, ritual hand washing, ritual social distancing, and ritual lockdowns. And it's a very long amount of information, but I'm just going to very quickly give you the salient points to it. Wearing a mask over your mouth is a sign of submission, a gesture of your willingness to be subject to others who are not usually in control, and also a sign to keep your mouth shut. It's a form of disguise or concealment, usually worn over or in front of the face to hide the identity of a person by its own features to establish another being. So basically, switching altars. You're covering up who you are and going into another altar.
Or if you're a criminal, it's very effective.
Well, and it has been effective for criminals recently. So wearing of a mask represents an occult transformation from one role, one persona, to another persona. But really, for the purposes of occult ritual initiation, Well, let's talk about washing your hands. Washing your hands, it means that you symbolically wash your hands of God or religious belief system.
Which they're closing everything down, which I'll talk about.
Which is why they've closed the churches and blah, blah, blah. So, hand washing ritual, you're symbolically washing away your old life under God and under the new order of the enemy and the many antichrists or demonic entities who've been putting off this coup all the way. Now, social distancing, standing 6 feet apart. Of course, we know that Antichrist number is 666. And so that's part of it. But here's what you need to know about standing away from somebody or wearing a mask, is that there's already millions of viruses in every breath of air that you breathe. It doesn't matter where you walk, those viruses are there. Now listen to this, there's between 1.6 million to 40 million viruses in every cubic meter of air that we pass through or walk through. So no matter how far apart you are from other people, the viruses are still there. You can't escape them, and perhaps in a full-blown hazmat suit with an air tank that you leave on for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, maybe you get a few of them out. So social distancing is a lie. And it keeps you symbolically and ritualistically separated from God, and because you're 6 feet from the Father, 6 feet from the Son, 6 feet from the Holy Spirit, 666. That's what it represents. So again, 4 stages of isolation. Stage 1, isolation for purification. You cut off from your normal life.
They did that to everybody.
Stage 2, surrender to the new normal. That's what they're calling it. This involves being given a token gift, stimulus check, leading to the initiate believing he's being taken care of. Stage 3, sacrifice. No gift can be given without something being taken, and in your case, or human's case, it's the dignity and your independence. And stage 4, the submission, mandatory vaccines, social tracing, accepting of new rules for a new order. So the global occult ritual of mask wearing signals your consent to the new subservient position. The occult global ritual of hand washing, you're washing away the old order. The global occult ritual of 6 feet social distancing symbolizes being apart from the God mind. And the global occult ritual of lockdowns symbolize isolation from everything normal so you can be purified from your old ways.
Now, I just want to comment on that hand washing before you sum it up, because the thing is they're not even allowing people to wash with real soap and water. They want you to do it with poison.
It's a poison. All those
Hand sanitizer.
they have poison in them that go right to your liver, kidneys, brain, and it will eventually poison and kill you. And if you give it to a child, the child will get poison and you'll have problems with that child when it gets older. So very dangerous situation. Again, I wonder if both the Democrats and Republicans are really on the same side. Like I said, good cop versus bad cop, and if so, we really do need an alien invasion. My people need to come. Now, I'm hoping that that's not true.
What?
That the Democrats really are the evil side. And so President Trump has ordered the notorious Guantanamo Bay detention camp in Cuba to prepare for high-level American prisoners, according to a new military of defense report. Now, I will tell you this is from Russia. This is not an American report. This is a Russian report. And I can only tell you that usually Russian information is more accurate than Western information. Russia has high confidence that Donald Trump is preparing to transfer an unknown number of high-level American citizen detainees to the United States Gitmo prison in preparation for their trials before a military tribunal. The last time such preparations were made was during the 1945 to 46 Nuremberg trials held to prosecute German Nazi war criminals. Just like what happened in 1945, we are now seeing hundreds of highly trained and specialized U.S. Army military police being rushed to Cuba to oversee this process. And we know that Guantanamo has been greatly expanded in capacity. The Guantanamo Bay detention camp is holding only 41 detainees, but can hold up to 800. And President Trump suddenly ordering a large amount of U.S. military police forces requires an explanation as to why. Now, this actually started in December 2017 when President Trump ordered the 850th Military Police Battalion to immediately deploy to Guantanamo, most likely to start building the
Interesting, it's the number 13, 8 plus 5.
Yes, that's true. And he's increasing flights to the naval station in Guantanamo Bay to 3 times a week. What American people don't know about is a law called the McCarran Act. And the McCarran Act, or Internal Security Act of 1950, allows for the detention of dangerous, disloyal, or subversive persons in time of war or internal security emergency, which is what we have. And so that's why President Trump has the authority to do this, and that's why these people in Portland, these Antifa members are being arrested. There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Maybe that's why they're calling the Karen, from McCarran.
McCarran. Well, you're a Karen. And you a Karen?
I'm not a Karen.
And that's, while we're on the subject, isn't it racist for anyone to call a white woman Karen? If a black woman said something obnoxious and said, okay, Beulah, or okay, Aunt Jemima, what would the black people say? They'd say, well, you're a white racist. So you call white women Karen, that's racist.
That's why I said it's interesting that same term, now here we have a McCarran, obviously it's different.
Yeah,
but
it's McCarran, C-A-R-R-E-N.
But still a Karen.
Anyway, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Most of the MS-13, the Salvadoran leaders, have been arrested. Antifa leaders have been arrested, over 100 of them. And Trump indicated this past week that he's going into the Democratic states and cities, and he said next week he's going to do another news conference, which will explain so that means something's going on right now that we don't know about, and next week we're going to find out. Maybe Bill de Blasio, aka Warren Werner Jr., that's his real name, maybe he will be arrested. And did you see the headlines of the New York Post?
Maybe.
There's a picture of Warren Werner Jr., or aka de Blasio, and it says, I love New York Post, it says, this is the putz that destroyed New York.
No, I didn't see that one.
I love that New York Post headlines, really perfect. Another thing I want you to keep in mind, Lebanon. My person on the ground reported to me yesterday that she received a text in Arabic. All the people at cell phones in Lebanon received a text in Arabic that said all UN workers and all American citizens must leave Lebanon before the 19th, which is Sunday. We're doing this on the 18th and the 19th. Tomorrow they have to be gone. So keep your eye on Lebanon. Now, just south of Lebanon is Israel, and the Israelis called immigrants to their country olim, means the people who have come to their country, and they're welcomed and educated and housed at great expense to the public. And because of the coronavirus and a rise in anti-Semitism, it's created conditions that have brought millions of Jewish people to Israel. But the Israeli government already is stretched to the limit, and is concerned they not be able to fulfill the prophecy of bringing home all the Jews. And so Jewish immigration is expected to double next year, but the budgetary constraints will make it difficult, if not impossible, to absorb them into Israeli society. Most of the immigrants are coming from Arab countries, Ethiopia, Russia, France, and the rest of Europe. And of course, now America, with all this going on there, things are happening. Israel has absorbed more immigrants per capita than any other country in the world. And so I don't see too many Americans or Canadians immigrating. In fact, I believe that the Israelis don't want Americans and Canadians to go, because those are the ones that have the money, and they want them to stay where they are and send money. And if they all came to Israel, there'd be no one to send money. So that's why they don't really want North American immigrants. But that's my opinion. And here's the other problem, not a problem, an issue. There are many African Jews, not Ethiopians, but Jews in Nigeria, Ghana, all Liberia, all the Western African countries, who claim descendancy from one of the lost tribes. They want to be recognized by the Israeli government, and they're not. And millions of them want to come to Israel. And I reported a few weeks, if not months ago, about up to 50 million Central Asian Jews in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and so on, who claim descendancies from the ancient lost tribes, who are now being recognized by the Sanhedrin as Jews, and they want to. You can't put 50 million people there. Where they're going to put 50
You have to
million
start
people?
another country, maybe.
Well, that's why they're going to annex the West Bank. See, not that you could fit 50 million, but I think they need more land, and I think they're going to also annex Jordan.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because, and then they were creating that big city, remember?
Well, that's in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, I thought it took part of Jordan, no?
No, it's in northwestern Saudi Arabia, but interesting that you said that, because when you read about the Red Sea and parting the Red Sea, which we have been doing a lot of research on that,
And we're talking about that on the blogs.
in the Bible it talks about Mount Sinai and so on. That doesn't mean it was in the Sinai Peninsula, because the Red Sea is between the Sinai Peninsula and Saudi Arabia. So very likely when the Jews crossed, they crossed into Saudi Arabia. And there's a mountain there near that city, which could be where they received their Ten Commandments. So there's another reason Saudi Arabia and Israel are getting very close together. But now to the other side. Did you know that there's an earthquake swarm in Iceland? It's now more than 10,000 quakes since June 19th.
Wow.
That's a lot of earthquakes.
Other earthquakes.
That's like shocking and raking and rolling. It's the biggest swarm to hit the Tjornes fracture zone in the north of the country in almost half a century. And the largest was 5.8, and the seismic activity is still ongoing. Earthquakes have been felt as far away as Reykjavik, which is 125 miles away from this epicenter. But I've mentioned many, many times that the Hekla and Katla volcanoes, they're called the evil sisters in Iceland, the Hekla and Katla, okay? And they're also starting to move a little bit. And if they erupt, as they have in the past, it could wipe out most of the life in Iceland. And it will affect, the ash will affect Europe and Asia. So a lot of things to look at. Now, closer to home, California has chances of experiencing the big one
That's what they keep telling us.
on the San Andreas Fault in the next 12 months, and the chances have tripled after also a lot of microquakes. Scientists warn a massive earthquake could hit San Andreas in the next year. Last year, there were 3,000 earthquakes in Ridgecrest, which is on the Garlock fault line. And the Garlock fault line stretches 160 miles and connects to the San Andreas fault line. And now they know that the seismic event could trigger the San Andreas and have devastating effects. Such a tremor could produce devastation to all human civilization within 50 to 100 miles of the quake zone, especially in areas like Palm Springs, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. I warned you to get out. Oh, but now you're locked down, so you can't get out. Well, I can't help you now. Volcanic eruptions are increasing globally, especially in the Pacific Rim. I would especially watch Mount Rainier and Mount Hood, which are starting to bubble, toil and trouble.
Well, and also the people are reflecting that. I remember when you went to Iceland, remember, and you talked to people about...
Yes, I did a whole thing in Iceland about volcano, about people who live in volcanic areas suppress their emotions, and if they let out their emotions in a proper way, the volcanoes would... by the way, I had a tremendous audience. Mm-hmm. And you know what? For years after, there was no volcanic activity. Then they forgot, and here we go.
And look what's happening all over the West Coast. All kinds of
and
toil and turbulence.
I did the same thing in Japan, and it was quiet for the last 6 years, and now here we go again.
So it's all over the place. So it's mind pattern. That's what it
But
boils
if
down
you don't
to.
listen to Daddy, this is what happens.
So, with that wonderful report, I want to tell you what A.G. William Barr said when he was recently at the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum in Grand Rapids, right here in Michigan.
Yes, I heard he was.
And it was a huge, huge topic that he's putting forward. And to me, this is the umbrella over everything that's going on in the world.
Did you talk about me?
Yeah.
Oh,
How did you know?
Because you said huge, huge topic.
Yeah. So this was very interesting, and this is why I want to pay close attention because, as I said, this is to me is an umbrella over many things, and it ties into how you ended your topic. That Attorney General William Barr warned that the Chinese Communist Party has launched an economic blitzkrieg to topple the U.S. from its perch as the world superpower.
Well, yes, we know.
As a threat, and he calls this the threat is the most important issue of this century.
I agree.
And he calls for the whole free world to join together in a whole of society approach. How the United States responds to this challenge will have historic implications and will determine whether the United States and its liberal democratic allies will continue to shape their own destiny or whether the CCP and its autocratic tributaries will control the future. The People's Republic of China is now engaged in an economic blitzkrieg, an aggressive, orchestrated, whole-of-government, whole-of-society campaign to seize the commanding heights of global economy and to suppress the U.S. as the world's preeminent superpower. It is clear that the PRC seeks not merely to join the ranks of other advanced industrial economies, but to replace them altogether.
That's true.
The General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, who has centralized power to a degree not seen since the dictatorship of Mao Zedong, now speaks openly of China moving closer to center stage, building a socialism that is superior to capitalism and replacing the American dream with the Chinese solution. They're openly saying this. China now has an initiative called Made in China 2025, which seeks to dominate high-tech industries like robotics and information technology and electric vehicles. And also, now this was interesting to me, because Barr noted that America aided Chinese rise by granting the country favored trading status in 1980 and supporting its joining the World Trade Organization a decade later. Now, in 1980, you know who our president was? Jimmy Carter.
Well, shut my mouth.
And you know what else Jimmy Carter did during his term? He gave to the Chinese, or sold to the Chinese, the Panama Canal.
That little twerp.
So we have a lot, and I didn't look to see what happened to who was in charge in the 1980s, but I mean 1990, 10 years later, he said.
Well, there was Bush,
So
Clinton.
to me, it had to be a Democrat, but I didn't look up for 10 years. I just looked up in the 80s, and that was Carter, and who did both those things. Then Barr went on to say that American companies have become dependent on the Chinese markets to provide vital goods and service, which we've seen during the pandemic. Barr said that the Chinese Communist Party has launched an orchestrated campaign enlisting the government and society to exploit the openness of our institutions in order to destroy them, which is true. They've been buying up land in the U.S. and doing a lot of things here in the U.S.
Even the debt, so that they own your debts.
Yes,
You have to pay them.
Barr said the free world will have to mount its own whole-of-society approach. Now listen to this. If we rekindle our love and devotion for our country and each other, which unfortunately they're pitting
I don't
us
see that
against each
happening.
other, I am confident that we, the American people, the American government, and American business can do it again. Our freedom depends on it. The ultimate ambition of China's rulers is not to trade with the U.S., it is to raid the U.S.
Well, they've done that.
And he said that American companies who are hungry for short-term profits have come under Beijing's influence, even at the expense of freedom and openness in the United States. Globalization does not always point in the direction of greater freedom. A world marching to the beat of communist China's drums will not be a hospitable one for institutions that depend on free markets, free trade, or the free exchange of ideas.
Yeah, and I just want to interject something there. There's a lot of news on some of the alternate sites about China going to set off an EMP bomb over the United States, and they're not going to do that because they need the U.S. infrastructure and the U.S. economy. They need that, so they're not going to destroy what they need.
In retaliation for Beijing imposing the strict new national security law on Hong Kong, which I've kind of been quiet for a while, but President Trump signed an executive order slapping sanctions on the Chinese officials to remove Hong Kong from the special trade status that it enjoyed with the U.S. when it was semi-autonomous.
Yeah, well,
So
now
that
it's
was
not
it.
autonomous,
That's
so
right.
it can't.
And I don't know if you heard, of course, but in the UK, Boris Johnson offered citizenship to the residents of Hong Kong.
Because they were under British control.
Yes, and now they're claiming that approximately 200,000 Hong Kong citizens are set to move to take up
Really? Because
residents.
how are they going to get there? Because China won't let them out.
Well, this is what they're saying. We'll find out.
I'd like to see how that's going to happen.
It said
Nice
that
move, Boris. Give away ice in the winter.
it's going to be interesting to see, as you said, what's going to happen with all this unrest going on in the world. Because according to Britain, they said the Hong Kongers coming to Britain would be a huge boost to the economy. And apparently,
Why? Because there's already no jobs for anybody else in Britain.
apparently UK makes citizenship offers to up to 3 million Hong Kong residents. And right now, there are 350,000 UK passport holders that live there, 2.6 million others who are eligible. And what they want them to do is come to Britain for 5 years, and after 1 year, then they can apply for citizenship. And right now, what they have what's called British National Overseas Passport holders, who were granted special status in the 80s, but were still under restricted rights. So they're taking off those restrictions. So let's see what happens. Like you said, it'd be very interesting.
I don't trust Boris anymore.
Well,
That's not the same Boris that went into the hospital when he got the virus, which he
yeah,
didn't.
they put them
really
side
have.
by side. They look totally
Yeah.
different.
And he acts the totally different mentality.
Now, speaking of Black Lives Matters stuff, did you realize that the city of Portland, Oregon has been under siege for 47 days?
I didn't count, no.
Yes, and they actually set up an autonomous zone.
Like in Portland?
They did. It was called Chinook Land, or is called Chinook Land Autonomous Territory, CLAT, and crime has risen 525%.
Well, that's not surprising.
Since that happened. So you might have seen that Trump now sent in troops into Portland, where and you can see them, they're grabbing people off the streets.
Well, they're kidnapping.
Yes,
Yeah,
they are.
And they should, because they're criminals.
I agree.
And
However,
they're insurgents.
listen to this. The mayor of Portland has demanded that Trump get the troops out. So don't you want
You
your,
know what?
your
I'll tell you
city
what, I
protected?
think get the mayor of Portland out. They should kidnap
Their
him.
Democratic governor also called for him to get the troops
And they
out.
should kidnap the governor
And
and send them to Guantanamo.
ACLU said get the troops out. So
And
I'm
get
tell-
Governor Newsom
I'm
also.
telling you, if this was my city and I was living there, I would welcome those troops with open arms.
Well,
and
you
you know,
did live in Oregon, didn't you?
but not in Portland. So my point is still, I think the people are most likely happy to have them there
I think so too.
because it's like,
But then again, Oregon is like all these new age la-la people. They probably throw flower petals at them and all that stuff.
well, they might, but it doesn't matter. What's right is right regardless. And those troops need to be there, and they need to be restoring order, and they need to get rid of, 525% crime increase, and having the city of Portland be under siege for 47 days.
I don't know
It's
why the
ridiculous.
people allowed that to happen.
The government is supposed to be protecting the people, and they're
They're
not.
communists.
They're
and
allowing these insurgents in.
These are anarchists. These
Yes.
are communists, and they should be eliminated.
Now,
period.
here's a positive. In my opinion, a judge approved a petition to recall the Seattle mayor. So that was a plus.
They're calling to hell.
And in Texas, Senator Ted Cruz is introducing legislation which allows lawsuits against local officials who fail to keep their communities safe by pulling back police protection. If these communities defund, or they're calling it defang, their local police departments, Cruz wants local officials to face lawsuits to
Good.
make them liable for the
Yeah.
destruction that follows.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we've seen violent rioters take to the streets in Minneapolis, New York City, and Seattle, where they burn businesses and communities to the ground.
And black businesses.
They've other minorities toppled and defaced statues and taken the lives of their fellow citizens.
Without even knowing this, some of the statues were helping
Yes.
free the slaves. These morons
Yes.
didn't even know who they were.
Yes, and a professor, Creighton University in Omaha, tweeted that Back the Blue, which now there are peaceful protests for people saying we believe in the police. They're calling pro-police gatherings a white supremacist rally. Now, this is a Jesuit university, and they were forced to apologize that he did this, but it still happened, and it will happen again. And now, not only do the Black Lives Matter leaders want to abolish the police and defund the police, they want to abolish U.S. military bases all over the world.
Of course they do.
And then, of course, we'll come back here. Now, this next story you will absolutely love, because this is about one of your favorite people, Ilhan Omar.
Oh, yes. I hope I meet her in person
Yeah.
one day.
Human rights activist Ayaan Hirsi Ali took aim at Representative Ilhan Omar after she called for the dismantling of the American political and economic system.
What the hell did she go? Stay in freaking Somalia.
Which I did report on that last week. So this human rights activist says she's in Congress, the United States Congress. It makes you wonder because Ali, guess what, also fled Somalia. So she's a Somalian, and she says she wants to ask the Congresswoman a question. You could get together with her.
Good.
So this human rights activist, who is Somalian, wants to ask her fellow Somalian.
I know the question.
She said, why flee from Mogadishu? Why flee from anarchy? Why flee from oppression and then come to the U.S. and do your best
To create it here.
to turn Minnesota and the U.S. into Mogadishu?
Yes, seriously.
She said no nation is freer and less systemically racist than the U.S., and that she is passionately against dismantling it.
Good
She
for her.
says, I think these movements, and Ilan is just one of these people symbolizing that. I think we need to resist and to say, look, you've come to America in search of freedom, you've come to America in search of equality. We find it here, she says. Our system is not perfect, we can fix it, and we do it through conversations, not through burning things down.
Yeah. If the U.S. was so unfair, how did she become a congresswoman?
Get out of here then. And
Yeah,
now,
leave. Go away.
and remember last week I reported about Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, who said that she was violating her oath to defend and protect the Constitution, and so she wants her to resign. Rand Paul offered to buy ungrateful Ilhan Omar a ticket back to Somalia.
We'll all chip in.
And this is the best one yet, because now there's a House Republican resolution that condemns Ilhan Omar for advocating a Marxist form of government.
Good.
It was a resolution.
Why isn't she arrested?
It was a resolution introduced by Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, co-sponsored by 8 other Republicans, where they argue that Omar has a history of expressing anti-American sentiments and that to continue to advocate for a Marxist form of government is incompatible with the principles laid out in the founding documents of the U.S. And given this incompatibility, the resolution notes this puts her in conflict with her oath of office, which she swore to defend the Constitution of this country.
So she lied.
It concludes that the House should therefore condemn her and anyone else who advocates for Marxist policies, which I agree with.
They should put her in prison for like 50 years and then deport her after that.
And now you did report on this last week, and so it's just adding to a bit, talking about how that her husband, after we're not sure she married her brother, blah, blah.
She did marry her brother.
But it was revealed that her campaign actually paid over $1 million to her husband.
To her new husband.
Yes, and not only that, apparently she received, an advance on a recently published memoir, which I didn't know she did that, but that's...
Who wants to read that?
Well, maybe other Somalians, I'm not sure, there are other Marxist people of how to do
probably.
it. But anyway, apparently that it also means she was accused of violating House ethic rules. And I don't understand it because the article didn't go into it, but it's important to know that she's using our system.
She's a criminal.
Yes, and obviously highly trained criminal. She didn't come in here and
She
do
works
this on
for
her
the
own.
Iranian government. That's a fact. She is a foreign agent.
So a lot of things going on. Hopefully we'll see people like her come down, and I'm grateful to these political figures who are doing their best to bring her down. And now on to more Black Lives Matter things, because again, to me, this is just a ridiculous thing. So this is actually my last about this subject. But Miss Swimsuit UK, who's 23 years old, wrote on her Facebook post that all lives matter, and they took her down and stripped her of her title because they said that was
Because she told
racist.
the truth.
And then her boyfriend wrote, "White privilege is a leftist lie," and they claimed that that was also racist.
Who's they? Who claimed that?
Whoever, Facebook took it down, and whoever gave her a
Facebook.
title.
Zuckerberg.
Not only that, but also whoever gave her the Miss Swimsuit UK, whoever that competition is. So these are stupid things that are happening.
Those are moron people.
Because all lives do matter. We all are
Yes,
in
that's
the
not
human
racist
race.
at all.
It
That's a
doesn't-
good thing. Every life
Yes,
matters.
Right, exactly.
That's not racist.
I also reported, if you remember, last week about Governor Newsom in California.
New scum. His name is New Scum.
He first of all, he banned church services.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can burn the church down.
Yeah, you can burn the church down. So anyway, so apparently California had a beach revival attended by 1,000 people.
Good.
And also he banned singing in churches. So on the Golden Gate Bridge, apparently several hundred people gathered to sing for about 2 hours.
Yeah. I saw that.
Okay, and then 3 California churches are actually taking the state to federal court over the ban on singing during services. because they argued that it's unfairly singling out religious services while ignoring protests against police brutality. The suit said Newscomb refused to apply the restrictions on gatherings to protesters, but then he went on to explain that we have a constitution, we have a right to free speech, so therefore the protests are okay, but you can't go to church, and God forbid you sing.
I wonder if his wine tasting place is still open while all the others are closed.
Yeah, that they should be sued for that.
He's probably
from the
open.
other wine
Yeah,
places. And then now listen to this one. In California, they have one county with no reported cases of COVID-19.
Really?
None. It's in the
Bigfoot County.
let's see, I have where it is. It's the northeastern region of California bordering Oregon.
Oh,
Okay,
because
so
nobody lives there.
they said they have been defying his shelter-in-place and mask mandates since it began, basically.
Even though nobody has a virus.
And, well, because according to the
Yes, I know.
governor, they're supposed to be shut down, but
Right.
they didn't.
Good.
So their sheriff actually is the one who said, I'm not going to enforce any of this. He wanted everybody in school, churches open, businesses open, and that's what they've been doing, and they're still well and healthy. His name is Sheriff William Tex Dowdy.
Bless him, pray for him.
Yes, pray for him. He's came up with a strategic plan. He's not going to enforce whatever the state will do.
Modoc County?
Modoc County. So anyway, I found that extremely interesting. And then in Utah, we're talking about kids going back to school again, right? Well, they made a plan. Governor Gary Herbert, who happens to be Republican, he announced that all students from kindergarten through 12 and on school buses must now wear masks. And so the parents had a fit in Provo. Bless you, parents in Provo. They all went to this meeting without their masks. They didn't social distance. They all sat
saw
together.
that.
And then, of course, they said, oh, we can't really have this meeting because you guys are not social distancing and you're not wearing your mask. So they canceled the meeting. But
course.
before the meeting, they had about 150 people gathered outside who said, don't smother the children. Let our children breathe.
Yes.
And let kids be kids. And then they went on to say, one woman said, I'm especially not going to send my son back to have his mind broken, which is true. And a grandmother of 5 dismissed the plandemic as an American hoax. She
It's
said,
a scam-demic.
we're perpetuating a lie. COVID is a hoax. It's a lie. It's a political stunt. And then some people said they're concerned their children will learn to fear the world.
They do.
And will not be properly socialized if their faces are covered, and the masks also cut down on people's oxygen. So good for you, Provo. Keep going against that governor.
That's where
It's
Donnie and
terrible.
Marie live.
Now, this is, they call it mystery, and I agree. Maybe you can shed some light on this one. Maybe you read about it. The mystery of 57 Argentinian fishermen who tested positive for coronavirus despite spending 35 days at sea. And before they went to sea, they spent 14 days in quarantine. They all took tests, and they were negative. But when they were out on the vessel, they claimed that 57 out of 61 are positive. Now,
I bet they had a common cold when they were younger.
maybe so, but scientists are baffled, so
Yeah, because
it's a
they don't
mystery.
have it.
Yeah. And here in Michigan, you might want to get out the Governor Whitmer
Oh, no.
puppet, because now we have a movement underway with 5 lawmakers in Lansing joining in an effort to impeach her.
You're such a Karen.
Gretchen Whitmer's historic, unprecedented destruction of our state requires historic, unprecedented impeachment proceedings.
It's a lie.
Playtime is over. It's time to talk with this ruthless tyrant. And that time is over. It's time for bold leadership, and legislators are standing up. So her days are numbered.
No, they're not.
So-
They're not. I'm running away.
Yeah. And of course, the White House is seeking to discredit Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Fauci.
And apparently, Donald Trump is working to marginalize him, according to this article.
I don't understand what's going on with those two.
And his dire warnings about the shortcomings of U.S. coronavirus response. A White House official said that several White House officials are concerned about the number of times Dr. Fauci has been wrong.
Like 100%?
The president said he's made a lot of mistakes, and Fauci says that he has not seen Trump in person since June 2nd and hasn't breached him in person in at least 2 months.
That doesn't make any sense, because then Trump says, well, I have a very good relationship with Fauci. Maybe it's because the
He doesn't
relationship
feel
is
sick.
he's in jail, and that's a good relationship
That's
now.
possible.
Maybe that's what he means.
And of course, you know, since the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Boom.
And of course, we don't really know what's going on with her because
Oh, she's singing like a bird.
I say she's always sung like a bird. I think she's a Mossad agent who set all
She
this
is.
thing up.
It's-
And now they're bringing people down. Every time you turn around, Chrissy Teigen has been outed.
What a creep she turned out to be.
All kinds of people. Ellen DeGeneres, all these pedophiles.
Degenerate. Ellen
that were
DeGenerate.
selling their things, babies. Anyway, police in France have arrested a man who is described as one of the top 10 most wanted targets by authorities fighting sexual crimes. He's in his 40s. He masterminded several darknet pedophilia internet websites, and he was apprehended in the city of Bordeaux, southwest of France, the first part of July. And he enabled thousands of internet users across the world to have access to photographs or videos of children pornography. And he played an active role in the production of child pornography photographs and videos, and when he was charged, he accepted these charges.
Well, that was nice of him.
Yeah, well, but he didn't say, I didn't do it. He said, I did it. Because obviously they have
And I'll
something
do it
against- and
again.
he will sing. Plus they have his records on top of that. And in Italy, approximately 2 weeks ago, they smashed a pedophile ring. And guess what they had in this one is so sickening, it's horrible. They have photos of sexual acts with newborn babies
Ah.
being shared on a well-known instant messaging
That's-
platform.
That's beyond sick. That's like even worse than demonic.
Investigators said it has other horrifying content depicting actual sexual violence where the victims were often newborns, and material was exchanged on an instant messaging platform that investigators did not identify but said it was well known. So well-going Italy. And Ghislaine Maxwell. She had a woman who was her assistant, Sarah Kellen, who was called her lieutenant, who actually did a lot of the dirty work for her apparently. And her mother, Sarah Kellen's mother, 74, is now afraid that her daughter will be the next one arrested, and claims that her daughter was a victim of the abuse, which I would probably agree. Regardless, she's going to have to suffer the consequences. But she said apparently the girl was a Jehovah's Witness. And when the girl started doing nude modeling, they kicked her out of the Jehovah's Witness.
A little bit, huh?
Yeah. And so they really weren't in contact with her daughter. But anyway, so this is probably going to happen next. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell has said, and this has been reported in the news, that she has pictures or tapes of two prominent politicians. Right. Okay, so with that in mind, I read this article, and maybe you saw it too, that the White House removed the portraits of Bill Clinton and George W. Bush from prominent space to a rarely used room. They said that it is tradition in the White House to keep up the latest president's pictures, and they were removed just a couple weeks ago. They were seen when President Trump was with Mexican President Obrador July 8th, but days after that they were moved to the old room.
That's interesting.
Now the other thing is, and which brought to mind and reminded me in this article, and you may remember, is the portrait of former President Barack Obama and Michael Michelle have also not been unveiled. And that is a tradition that the ones coming in unveil the portraits of the last one, and Trump refused. And he has accused Obama of unsubstantiated so far and unspecified crimes, and has questioned whether Obama was born in the U.S.
He said on news conference that Obama committed treason. He said
Yes,
that.
he has said that now. So but I do find it interesting that those two presidents' portraits now have been removed in light of what Ghislaine has said. And of course, Clinton's been implicated, and there was that picture of him, remember, in the royal blue dress. And also
that was very odd.
the picture of George Bush sitting with the paper airplanes in front of the two towers. So those now are the two presidents who have been removed. So remember, they're doing just like everybody else, bit by bit by bit.
But nothing about Prince Andrew.
Well, they talked about how that.
They took his website down.
Yeah, and Trump said sometime back in a 2015 interview that if you want to know what's going on in Epstein Island, ask Prince Andrew. They have that now in an interview with Trump. He called it, I think, a cesspool. And remember, he's going to drain the swamp.
Wonder if he'll have to go to Mummy, save him.
Well, I don't know how far he's...
So shut up, you stupid sot.
Yeah. And you remember also last week that I reported about Tulsa and Oklahoma. Now,
which is not okay.
That's right, because now they've given a lot of the jurisdiction back to the tribes. Well, interestingly enough, there were murder charges against a Tulsa father whose two children died in the hot car. The man was 31 years old. His children, 3 and 4, were locked in his car while he took a nap.
How could you do that?
So they had brought murder charges against him. Now the DA announced he was forced to drop the charges because the children are tribal citizens. So now
the murder doesn't count?
it has to go under federal and state, not state jurisdiction. So the reason I'm bringing that up, because I said it's going to be a lot, we don't know what happened and why, but it makes a big change for criminals now, because even the old convictions that were done this way, they're going to call those null and void. So we don't know what's going to happen in Oklahoma, what they're trying to do.
I don't know. I thought Oklahoma was better than that.
But we don't know what's, it's always a couple of sides. And what I want to remind you about the sale of the bankrupt Remington gun manufacturer to the Navajo Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And then in light of the stories I gave last week, people were, bringing up again about how the Indian reservations have been being used for a lot of subversive activity. Because usually, they're out in kind of abandoned areas that most people don't want. Unfortunately, that's what they did with them. So, it's kind of like the Amish people. They brought a lot of drug dealing and things and trafficking through the Amish people because it couldn't be traced. The same thing is concerning to me about what's happening on the Indian reservation. So if anybody has inside information about that, not just the videos that are circulating on YouTube, because everybody sees those, but the inside, you live on a reservation, let me know what's going on there. And then, of course, Planned Parenthood, I want to remind you, speaking of the Clintons, that Hillary Clinton called Margaret Sanger, who was the founding person of Planned Parenthood, of course, run by Bill Gates' father. Hillary Clinton said how much she admired Margaret Sanger, right?
She does.
So now this is recent. Under oath, officials from Planned Parenthood admitted to harvesting organs from babies who were born alive with beating hearts.
Horrible.
They're calling this a shocking new video of deposition testimony under oath, confirming crimes worthy of comparison to Dr. Mengele.
Even he wasn't as bad like that.
Videos of witnesses under oath show that not only did abortion giants profit from the sale of fetal organs of Planned Parenthood and its business partner, Advanced Bioscience Resources, violated federal law that mandates a fetus born with a beating heart is a human being equally entitled to protections under the law.
Yes.
And not only that, but there were companies that placed an order for body parts from a born alive infant. So therefore, they actually harvested the organs while the child was alive.
So here's my, if I was a judge,
Yeah.
I would harvest the organs from those people
While they
who
were
ordered
alive.
them while they were alive with no anesthetic and see how they feel.
They said if federal laws applied equally to born alive infants, this is murder for hire. Living human beings are killed by denying them care, and their organs are harvested for profit. And this is who Hillary Clinton admires.
She's not even a witch. I was saying a witch isn't too nice for her.
Yeah. And now, I also told you last week about Kanye West running for president.
Yeah, I might vote for him, actually.
And then not running for president.
I might take my illegal.
And then running for
I might
president.
take my illegal Michigan ballot and vote for him.
Maybe so. So anyway, he has picked a running mate, who's Wyoming life coach Michelle Tidball, who's 57. It claims that she was first visited by God at age 6 months old. She's from Cody, Wyoming, and that's the same town where Kanye now owns a $14 million ranch.
That's stupid next to the volcano.
But she scrubbed clean her website presence, so we don't know exactly what's going on. So he was running, then he wasn't running. And then I also mentioned about this little tiff between him and Kim Kardashian,
Yeah, she needs to
the
go away.
wife, because she supports Planned Parenthood, who supports killing these babies, apparently. So remember that. And he says he doesn't support abortion. And also, what was the other thing that she supported that he did? Oh, vaccination. She supported vaccinations and he didn't. So
Yeah,
now
she's an airhead, you know.
now there are rumors of the two of them getting divorced. And apparently, according to this particular article, that these rumors surface every 2 to 3 months. And it's supposedly because Kanye claims that he's bipolar or schizophrenic. So he recently discussed his struggles with mental illness in an interview with David Letterman, which I found this very fascinating, because Kanye said, when you're in this state, you're hyper paranoid about everything and everyone. Everyone now is an actor. Everything is a conspiracy. You see everything. You feel the government is putting chips in your head. You feel you're being recorded. You pretty much don't trust anyone, and they have this moment where they put you, they handcuff you, they drug you, they put you on the bed, and they separate you from everyone you know. So what has this man been through?
Well, There you go.
So
He's telling the truth.
So let's see what happens with this Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Trump, and now he's got a VP running for president. Who knows what's going to happen? And originally when he ran, I think Trump, and I didn't put this in here, but Trump said this will give him good practice for the next election, for 2024, when Trump is no longer available. So Trump didn't say anything good or bad. Trump. He said, "I'll give him good practice for the next one."
Okay.
So the point is, he didn't put him down, say he was bad. They're still, I think, behind the scenes friends. That's my feeling.
Oh, yeah.
And now we hear a lot about different kinds of discrimination. So this one I thought you would appreciate. This is from Jerry Roenick, who's accusing NBC Sports of heterosexual discrimination.
Oh, I saw that
Did
one.
you see that?
Mm-hmm.
He claims he was wrongfully terminated because he joked about having a threesome with his co-host.
Well, he shouldn't have done that.
No, that was inappropriate. But the reason they said was not appropriate was because he claims that Johnny Weir during the 2018 Winter Olympics is gay apparently. So when Roenick complained about the comments that this gay man had made, they said, well, he can say it because he's gay, and you can't say it because you're not gay.
Karen.
So therefore, they let him go, and he said it's because he's a Trump supporter.
Oh,
So we don't know,
probably.
but they're calling it a heterosexual discrimination. So I thought that was
Well, you
interesting.
know what? He did say something that was wrong.
What he said was incorrect, but they didn't give him a chance to correct it. They just fired him. So, and it's true. He could have apologized. A lot of them do it and go on. It wasn't correct. He said other incorrect remarks, which I won't go into. But and then speaking of New York City, now apparently New Yorkers have more to worry about because we say, what's after this? What's after this? Okay, one more thing for them, because now apparently there are mosquitoes that have been spotted who have been infected with the West Nile virus.
Of course.
So that's next for New York.
Of course they are.
Now, what's next for the world? Okay, this was really good because this article actually came out in 2019, but just was re-brought up again a couple of days ago, which makes me think there's something to it. So I want you to listen to this one. This one, in my opinion, about the aliens. Because NASA chief warned that humans must prepare for a massive meteor strike. That's what they said.
Hopefully on Seattle.
Massive. Jim Bridenstine warned an audience at the International Academy of Astronautics Planetary Defense Conference about the very real possibility of a large meteor crashing into the Earth. And he said, we have to make sure that people understand that this is not about Hollywood, it's not about movies. This is about ultimately protecting the only planet we know right down to host life, and that is planet Earth. He referenced then a large meteor that entered the Earth's atmosphere, I'm sure I remembered this, in central Russia in February of 2013.
Yeah, that was Chelyabinsk.
Yes,
That's near my homeland.
The meteor, measured roughly 20 meters in diameter, was traveling at 40,000 miles an hour. It was brighter in the sky than the sun at that point when it entered the Earth's atmosphere. People could feel the heat from this object 62 kilometers away.
Except it wasn't a meteor.
That's right, and that's why I think it's about aliens. When it finally exploded 18 miles above the surface,
Because meteors don't explode.
it had 30 times the energy of the atomic bomb at Hiroshima. It damaged buildings in 6 cities.
Right, I remember.
Then he goes on to say, I wish I could tell you that these events are exceptionally unique, but they are not.
Except no one ever heard of it before.
That's right, and it's been 7 years and we haven't had another one, right?
Right, because it wasn't a meteor.
He says that meteors enter the Earth's atmosphere on a regular basis, but not as large as this one, and this one you just mentioned in central Russia, but it happens once every 60 or so years. Now, if you'll also remember December 18th of 2019, a massive meteor exploded over the Earth's atmosphere, but the details of the blast have just been recently uncovered. I don't know if you remember, I reported
So
on
they
that.
just had to write a story
Somehow,
for the news.
the fireball reportedly flew over the Bering Sea and the Pacific Ocean between Russia and Alaska. And so my point is to me, they're starting now to say that we're going to see these meteors. And remember the Neowise thing now that they've been showing all over the place? It's called Neowise, Neowise, I think. And this was shown over St. Joseph and over this city and over that city. Everybody's photographing that. So they're getting you to look up to the sky and what's going to come next. God only knows at
My
this point.
people are going to come and stop this moron insanity.
But I'm going to tell you, regardless of what's going on, we have all kinds of protection techniques, mental protection techniques for you. So not only that, but you want a strong body in case you got to run or flee.
And a meteor umbrella.
Yeah, and a meteor umbrella. So you want to take care of yourself. So we've got all kinds of hair healing books in, I think it's, I can't remember if it's a template of God Mind or Or this one, we talk about the 72 names of God, and we talk about a lot.
I have that right on
Yeah.
here.
So we have all kinds of things in here that will help you, help yourself, because you're going to be in situations like, look at those people in Portland, Seattle, California, where they have to help themselves. You're going to have to find it within yourself. And Kanye, I think you need to read our books. Say no to mind control.
I like Kanye.
I do too. Say no to mind control. Maybe we'll vote for Kanye.
I'll take my fake
He's
ballot.
a he. So say no to mind control. Get this set of books to Kanye, because if that's what he's seeing, that's obviously symptoms of mind control. Alternative medical apocrypha. Is this the way? I was getting it mixed up. No, this way. Yeah, heights of health. So all these things help your body, mind, and soul. You connect to your source. You do your own healing work. And of course, if you're not familiar with our work, Hyperspace Health for Decoding Your Life, this is a great place to start. I will also tell you and remind you that those of you who are using some of our products that we have, the research is on the site. Those are now available to members only. We had a couple people get a little disturbed about that, but I'm sorry. We take care
Take
of those.
it up with the government.
We take care of those who help them, who are supporting us. So you support us, we support you.
Okay, with the Democrats.
And you do get a very nice membership discount when you buy from the site. So support expansions, expansions.com, less than $1 a day. July 23rd,
Yes,
don't you have a great...
if you'll stop talking
No,
for a
I
minute,
am talking.
then I'll be able to tell them
I
that
didn't
July
want you to tell them.
23rd,
That's just what I was
you're going
saying.
to disturb what they're hearing.
No, I was already started to say that. July
I
23rd.
hear noise.
No, you just go ahead.
July 23rd is my webinar on Transmuting the Reptilian Within,
Yes.
broadcast from Quito, Ecuador.
And also, I'm reminding people that we do have a limit. It is getting filled. It's about 3/4 filled now.
It is?
It is.
Wow, I know that.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
in English and Spanish. So
Mhm.
please get your seats now. It's very reasonably priced.
And I just booked my room at the Traverse City Hotel and Resort in Traverse City, Michigan.
Which is the home of the governor, and
Which
it
is
is
the home of the
fully open.
governor, and it's open.
Isn't
Oh,
that-
that's
what
very
shock.
odd that the governor's city is open. How lucky is she?
How did that happen?
How did that happen? I'll tell you how. Because I know how to stop viruses, and I did in my city.
It
Okay.
should be nice and safe up there.
Yes,
right?
it will be.
So,
And so that'll be for the North American Space Summit,
that is not open
which
to the
you
public.
cannot come. Only I can go.
And he'll give us a nice report
Mm-hmm.
on our blog. If you're a member of Expansions, you'll be the first to know.
Now, I thought about, they're begging me in Turkey to come back in September, and I have my tickets and blah, blah, blah. And so I went online, I looked about all that stuff, and first of all, I'm not going to travel 14, 15 hours on a plane with a mask. I'm not
So if
doing
you have
it.
a private plane,
And Turkish Airlines sent me an email saying that you have to bring your own mask and change them every 4 hours, and you have to wear them 100%. Like, no, I'm not doing that, not doing that. And plus, once you get to Turkey, everybody who arrives in Turkey has to get a COVID-19 test and their temperature taken. And even if they suspect, before the even test comes back, if they suspect that you have a virus, they will put you in a private hospital for 2 weeks, take you directly by military police to the hospital. I'm not taking that chance. Sorry, Turkey, not doing it. Postpone it. In addition to that, after Turkey, I was supposed to be, or I am at the moment, scheduled to be the lead speaker at the Ufology Global Conference in Barcelona, Spain. And they've contacted me and all that stuff, but right now, anyone who lives in the United States is not allowed to go to an EU country. Plus, just as of today, Barcelona was locked down again. So it's very unlikely that Turkey and Spain will happen in September. So I'm just letting you know. But as of now, I'm just going with the motions. Hopefully, if there's a miracle happen, I don't know. But right now, I'm telling you, I'm not going to put myself in that position. As far as my ride to New York, thank you, those of you who have offered to do that. And some of you are in a position where you would need to cross the border, so you really can't do it. But I am in negotiation, or I should say negotiate, I'm in talking process with a couple of people. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I will know what I'm supposed to do. Unless, of course, one of you very generous people want to allow me to use your private jet and without a mask and fly me back and forth to Long Island. So thank you for that if you do that.
That's it.
Oh, and until all that happens, party like a Russian.
And get your expansions membership, expansions.com.
Yes, and remember, the best is yet to come after my people invade. And where we go on, we go.
Bye.